Hello chefs, another wet and grey day, a soup day. And today I'm gonna make a little cheese soup, celery, broccoli and Stilton soup. So as you can see here, you need 3 sticks of celery, couple of fairly small broccoli, not the huge ones, and my 3 onions as usual. I got some stock boiling on, and I'm going to start straight away. The pot is on. All I need is just to put up the heat and start by putting some butter in. Need some cream, salt and pepper to finish as well. And here we go. So as that is melting away, I slice my onion, which means I half, and I cut it across the grain in thin slices. Everything today, because of time constraint, will be quite thin, so it cooks quite fast. And you can have it ready in about half an hour at the most. So the butter is melted, just spread it out and just cut it across in very thin slices. You can see the half moon shape of the slice rather than the shreds, and that will help when it breaks down with the liquidizer. So very much cook as you go. And in goes the onion, not too high because I don't want too much color in this today. I just want to sweat it. So maximum, that is simmering, and let it sweat. And then I prepare my broccoli. First of all, with the broccoli, I choose the best of the two, or if you get a big one, half, and I keep the florets, which is the very small bits at the top, which I sort of blanch or poach rather in that stock, which is vegetable stock, which I'm going to use for the soup, and I use that for garnish. So just cut off the very head and make it quite small. So just go around the crown and put it all in a bowl. They're just coming off. You can do the same soup with cauliflower too, which goes very well with cheese, as the cauliflower cheese is a sort of classic recipe. And Stilton is the best cheese, but if you can afford a Danish blue will just do as fine, as long as it's not a sort of hard cheese, you'll be all right. So keep that. This one I just cut smaller. Much smaller because it's going to be a garnish inside the soup. And at the same time I keep my onions going, so everything is coming together at the same time. That's one of the main assets of a good chef. Multitasking and having maybe a few recipes going at the same time to be ready for service together, although they have different timings. And it takes practice for that, but that's not a requirement for you, as this one is really cookery on a budget for people stranded or isolated because of coronavirus, with just the minimum amount of equipment and everyday ingredients. Right, that's nearly there. So I keep them and blanch them in a minute as I do the rest of the ingredients. So always start off with the onions, and then I do the broccoli. I cut off now much bigger florets and get a stem, which is the hardest one of the lot, which I use. I won't waste it. All I do, make sure it's washed, of course, fairly clean, trimmed if necessary. And the same as the onion, but with a much more positive slicing motion, very, very thin, I go right through. Make sure my onion is not browning too much. So that's the motion that we've seen before. It's like a cranking motion, slicing at the same time. Like this, keeping the tip down to have a positive sort of grip and precise slicing. having a firm sort of base or fulcrum at the tip of the knife. The thinner you go, the quicker it's going to cook. And that's why I chose two small broccoli rather than a big one. The skin or the stem is much harder. The onion's coming up just slightly before caramelizing. So stir it in. In goes the broccoli. Then the celery, exactly the same thing across the strands. Your finger walk here comes nice and handy. It's a skill that you're using all the time in the kitchen. And cheese and celery is a classical combination too. And in they go. So they're sweating together. Give it a bit of a stir. Great. And let it sweat. And also cover with a lid. I get the stock on a boil. And I put in my little florets, the garnish. I just wanted to sort of poach a little bit as I break out the remaining of the broccoli. Just rough, this is going to be pureed or liquidized rather. And I can go in a bit later when I got the stock in. I got salt and pepper, but I won't need so much because the stock itself is quite strong. Then at this stage, some people like to use flour to thicken it. I'll be using some potatoes just to make it a bit sort of smoother. Say flour can be added with the fat, with the butter rather. As I said, I'll be using potato, just peeled potato, nice and fast. Again, same work, stir that as I've done before, and just cut it, rough sticks, and then the stick into thin slices. And that gives a bit of body to the soup. Fantastic. Put it in with the rest of the broccoli. And that should be poached, almost ready. As usual with this hob is very slow going. So pretend it's been boiling a bit longer because of my time on the clock here. And what I do is just drain it. And keep the florets. Pour in the rest. Stir it nicely. And the smell is quite thick, it just barely covers. So it's quite a thick soup to start with. I might add a tiny bit of stock later on. So if you go this far, the next is just to be patient and wait for a while. So I'll see you in a few minutes. So here I am now, about 20 minutes later, 15-20 minutes later. I'll just check my ingredients. I had to add a tiny bit more stock from the little pot. I just fish out a bit of the potato that should break up nicely in your hand, or the stem of the broccoli, again fairly soft. And I just switch off the heat. There'll be some residue heat left in a hot plate, and while it's sort of quietening down there, just on a very gentle simmer, both of them, I add my Stilton cheese. I crumbled it. There's about 100 grams there for at least 5 or 6 portions of soup there. This soup can be kept, can be even frozen easily and reheated, but it's almost impossible to do just 1 or 2 portions of soup successfully. So in it goes. It's mixed in. The next bit is to actually liquidize it. Handheld liquidizer. Not too fast a speed, but medium speed. Make sure you don't use turbo, otherwise the whole thing fushes about. And here it goes. That's about it. I just want to have it a bit sort of rough, not too fine. I put that back, out of the way. I check. Yeah, it's okay. No more boiling. Time for cream. If you can avoid cream if you want to. You can even use milk instead, but that makes it much richer. And at this stage, I taste it. It should have that sort of tangy, cheesy flavor to it. I haven't put any pepper in. The salt is sufficient from the stock itself. As I use stock cubes, I usually got salt in it. But it takes quite a bit of this freshly ground black pepper. If you're worried about the appearance, you can use ground white pepper. And you should have a nice sort of, just a slightly sort of coating consistency, as you can see on my spatula. Final taste. Don't forget to spoon in cold water so it cools down every time you use it. And off I am for service. I got my soup plate. I got my bread in with the florets. Last mixing so they don't break up. And that's my broccoli, celery and Stilton soup. Quite flavoursome. You might not be very keen on a Stilton, but you hardly sort of taste it in there. And to finish off, maybe just a bit of cream. Just a round thing. And if you want, play about, you can do this. And there it is. My soup, crusty roll, multi-seeded, and bon appetit. See you next time. Bye.